So, and if you tell someone, oh, well, you probably developed this when you were in fourth grade, they don't like to hear that.
Right.
Okay.
Sure. Of course you don't.
So one of the examples that I give when I teach CBT and I teach core belief systems in general is in fourth grade we do different types of activities. So if we think about the sun, right? What shape is the sun? A circle. If we think about the earth, what shape is the earth?
Circle-y.
Right? If we think about the moon, what shape is the moon?
Same.
Same thing. We learn the solar system in fourth grade, and we learned that the world and the sun and everything is this perfect sphere. However, if we look at it deeper, it's really not. There's mountains, there's valleys, there's plains. If we looked at this rock, right, for what it truly was, it wouldn't be that smooth circle. We can look at the moon, and when we look at the moon, right, we can literally see that it's an imperfect circle. However, we can't comprehend it not being a complete circle.
Right.
The sun itself, right, is a whole bunch of explosions. It's not a circle, it's contained explosion. So it's chaos. And we can identify that. But whenever we think about it, we think that perfect round sphere. Mm-hmm. And so just like how that's ingrained in us, and no matter how hard someone tries to say, like something like, because the Earth is actually more of a pear shape, and that's why it wobbles. Physicists would back me up on that, but for this class, you're not physicists, so you don't have to worry about that. But I like bringing different disciplines in, right? But what happens is that we can logically explain it away. However, that belief is so strong that we can't.
Right.
And so if we take that belief system and we say, okay, well, if you're saying that you're unlovable, right, as a belief system, we can tell you all that you want, that you're a lovable person, but no, in that background, unlovable.
Yeah.
Right? So another way I like to explain it is because most of the time when we're going through life, and this would be automatic thoughts in CBT, most of the time as we're going through life, we're just thinking all the time, and we don't know that we're thinking, right? They just come in and come out, come in and come out. So whenever we walk, this room is cold, oh, I don't like the paint there, oh, I don't like those curtains. Mm-hmm. But they're so fast that we don't even realize that we're having those thoughts, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's only when an activating event occurs that makes us spark these thoughts that says, wait a second, something's off, something's wrong, and then we build a belief off. If we walk into, to give an example, if we walk into a retail store and we walk in there, there's usually background music in the store, right? Mm-hmm. And you walk into the store, you hear this background music, but most of the time you don't hear the background music. You're just going into the store.
Right.
Now, if in the store you walked in there, it would be an uncomfortable feeling, right? It's just uncomfortable because we're just so used to that background noise.
Yeah.
And then we become aware of the background noise also if it's something that hits a memory for us. Right? So all of a sudden you're in the store and when that comes on, you're like, whoa, yes, I like this song. I remember this song, right? And all of a sudden you become aware of this reality that's around you, and it makes you think more. So when a person has these feelings of being unlovable or not worthy, something will pop up, loss of job, and all of a sudden, I'm right, I am unlovable, I am unworthy. Mm-hmm. And so we have to identify, how is that too rigid of a belief system, right? Mm-hmm. Having a job means that I'm successful. Is that always the case, right? Can we be successful and not have a job?
Sure.
Maybe. Yeah. And so with clients, and I know that I'm going a little tangential on you today, but it's later in my time zone than it is in yours.
Okay.
But if we think about it, right, when we start developing this idea of what's right, what's wrong, rational, irrational, right, we will fight it tooth and nail. Mm-hmm. Right? We will fight it because even though we might say, yes, I agree with someone, we're like, no. And then we also put a value judgment to it too, right? So I'll ask a person, a person says, I must be successful. So I say, well, what does success mean, right? Mm-hmm. And And all of a sudden they have trouble answering that because it's such a broad term that they have to figure out what success means to them. So what was their social learning of success?
Yeah.
And so I'll be like, all right, so give me an example of some of the people that you are, that you think are successful, right? And usually I'll get something like Bill Gates, maybe a boxer. I'll get like an entertainer, something like that. And I go, okay, so they are successful because of X, Y, and Z. I go, what about Gandhi? And what about Martin Luther King? Were they not successful? And then I go into Mother Teresa and I say, was Mother Teresa successful in life? And if they're like, yeah, she was successful in life, I say, she took a vow of poverty. She made no money. So money doesn't equal success at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a core belief that I have to make a lot of money in order to be successful.
So you are challenging that core belief.
Yes. So you challenge these core beliefs. And when you get that moment where they're like, well, maybe, that's when the change can come in.
Awesome.
Right? Because you got this person to think differently than they thought before. Mm-hmm. Right? How many times have we as social workers dealt with people who, like, we say, how can we help you? And they're like, I just want to be happy. And you're like, right. Okay, but what is happiness? My happiness is different from another person's happiness.
Sure.
Right? And is it realistic that I'm going to be happy every single moment, every single day? No.
Right.
It's not possible. Right? So I'm looking to do something. And this is why we have such problem setting goals within CBT, is because we look for things that are big and broad, like our core beliefs. And then if something goes like, uh-oh, I failed.
Right.
And then it reaffirms our belief in failure.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So if my goal for today is like, I'm going to be happy all day today. Well, I don't have full control of that, do I?
Right.
Right. I might have a mean professor that's making me listen to a long lecture of a guy, or like I might be like, I like listening to these like type of lectures, but it's like you don't have control of that.
Right.
Right. And so you have to get people more into the reality base. So that's where CBT does work well. Is it works well because it starts identifying like what is the percentage of happiness that you want, and what makes you happy. And it starts doing the scaling, between 1 and 10. Where would your anxiety level be, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a 5. How can we get that down to a 4? So it gives that kind of scaling mechanism mm-hmm. to help people identify what their real goal is.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. But I like how you brought in the core beliefs, because CBT would call that the environment that the person is in, because mm-hmm. that you're feeding from your environment and your past and your core beliefs, or your mm-hmm. thoughts are being fed by these things.
Yes.
So CBT would say that's your environment.
Right.
Which is also inclusive of your family and your friends and your school mm-hmm. and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And so, like, in CBT, that's one of the things why I like REBT too, is because REBT says, were they telling you the truth? Mm-hmm. Right? Because, like, we get lied to all the time. We get told that we're special when we're not special. We get told that we're wrong when we're right. So we get lied to all the time by a society. And then we develop this identity that I have to be within this environment. And this environment fulfills my need. However, if we question that environment, then we can really get to where the person's feeling, because who's teaching in the environment? Right? If we look at current situations within the political realm, and we look into and social issues, like, we have people that are very divided on what is right and what is wrong, and that's kind of a core belief, because that's their environment.
Sure.
People
mm-hmm.
will say, oh, this is completely wrong, and people will say this is completely right, and people become unhinged. So I would actually say that in our political nature, we're actually just expressing more core beliefs than ever before, because we've taken away this filter that we have, right? Because mm-hmm. we don't have to be careful what we say, right? However, the problem is that that's wrong, because we're automatically assuming that everything we think, and then that causes this disconnect from ourselves in general.
Right.
Because if I can't be wrong, right, and I'm always right, anybody that's against me is always wrong. So I can't learn in that situation. So that's one of the things that I come across a lot when I work with men is that, no, that's not how this works. That's not how this works at all. And I'm like, well, let's think about this a little bit, right? Yelling and screaming, is it really getting you what you want, right? Well, people respect me then. No, they fear you then, right? And I go, is there a difference between fear and respect, right? And they're like, well, I was like, I'd much rather have people respect me because I don't have to yell or scream, and push them away because they'll just respect my boundaries that I set up and listen to what I have to say.
Exactly.
And so that's one of those, aggression is one of the big topics that I work with men, right? Because aggression is not the same as assertive. However, in our society and in our environment, it's been taught that aggression is assertiveness, especially for men.
Right. And so you have to kind of change that belief because
Yes.
it's a cognitive distortion.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think we're running out of time. Is there anything that you would like to add here at the end about CBT or REBT or anything that you think is like one of the main things that you took away when you...
Okay, so one of the things I took away when I first learned about CBT and REBT was that, you know what? As social workers, we have a different calling than psychologists. And I was like, I can see pieces of CBT working, but I don't believe in it hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
So since social work is a sharing profession, we take from both sociological and psychological theory, right? So when I started learning CBT, I was like, when I went back for my master's in social work, I had already been in the field for a long time. So I went back in and I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, but it's not going to work, right? And so like you teach that theory, but like if you think about it, we're going to pull from all different theories, and that's the best part about being a social worker is that we don't attain to just one. Like, so I don't say I'm an REBT therapist, and I don't say I'm a CBT therapist, but I do say that I attend to more of the cognitive and behavioral ends of therapy, right?
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that I don't bring psychoanalysis into my theory. It doesn't mean that I take away systems theory. So what I suggest to the students, since it's a practice course, correct?
Yes.
Right? Is that steal from different theories and see what works for the client. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing CBT and all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe if we look at REBT and national belief system that works better, and you try it and the client does well, you did something good. You don't have to stick to that one specific. And what happens when we go into facilities, a lot of times they say, we do CBT, right? And when you actually look into it, you write notes in CBT. However, when you're talking with clients, you're not using it all the time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, unless it's manualized and you're just going down the list, but you're absolutely right.
And as social workers, we don't do that. We tend to have conversation. We tend to try to get to know the individual, not just their answers to a scaling question.
Exactly. Yes, I love that as a great way to end. Thank you so much, Dr. Hannah. I really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
Thank you on behalf of the students, too.